This video presents how hazards are classified according to the GHS and how hazardous properties of chemicals are communicated to users. Chemical hazards are classified according to the type of adverse effects they may cause. The hazards are further differentiated based on the severity of the effect or the quality of the data available for assessment. The GHS contains classification criteria that can be applied on pure substances as well as on mixtures of substances. The hazard classes are grouped into physical hazards, health hazards, and environmental hazards. Each hazard class is divided into hazard categories that differentiate the hazard according to the severity of the effect or weight of the evidence. Data on effects in exposed human populations carry a higher weight than experimental animal studies. Thus, positive data from human populations motivates classification in a higher health hazard category than when animal data alone is available. However, it must be noted that any lack of observations in exposed human populations does not negate animal test data. The physical hazard classes consider effects such as explosivity, flammability, oxidizing potential, metal corrosion, chemicals under pressure. The criteria for physical hazard classification are aligned with the UN recommendations on the transport of dangerous goods, where they can be found in the Manual of Tests and Criteria. When the GHS refers to a health hazard, it refers to the ability to cause harm in humans. A distinction can be made between acute and chronic health effects. Acute toxicity is generally characterized by a single or short-term exposure at a high dose, causing clinical symptoms which hopefully can be treated so the affected person recovers. Chronic effects may show after long-term, low-dose exposure that do not cause any obvious immediate effects. However, over time, symptoms may develop, and by the time they are recognized, treatment may not always be possible. Two types of environmental hazards are considered by the GHS. Hazardous to the aquatic environment means the ability of a chemical to cause harm to water-living organisms. The hazard class covers both acute, short-term, and chronic, long-term exposure. The hazard class, hazardous to the ozone layer, covers the controlled substances listed in the annexes to the Montreal Protocol and the mixtures containing at least one of these substances as ingredients at a concentration of 0.1% or more. Substances are classified based on available data obtained using internationally validated and accepted test methods, such as the OECD guidelines for testing of chemicals. While classification of chemicals for effects on humans can also be based on epidemiological data or human experience, specific human testing for the purpose of classification is not acceptable. Testing is required for physical hazard classification. The classification of mixtures generally requires knowledge of the ingredient substances, their concentration, and individual classification. However, similar to substances, physical hazard classification of a mixture requires testing of the mixture. The classification of mixtures, considering the different hazard classes, is extensively covered in the GHS, and guidance has also been provided by, for example, the European Chemicals Agency.